By Adyashanti. One of the nice things about meditation is that when we sit with these moments as they arise, we start to trust in them and in the dark grace. After meditating with my first meditation teacher, Arvis, for some time, I decided to do a week-long silent Zen meditation retreat. Arvis said, "I feel good about a teacher named Jakusho Kwang up at Sonoma Mountain Zen Center. Maybe that would be a good place for you to go." I was excited to experience an authentic retreat in a Zen Buddhist temple with all the accoutrements, the bells, the robes, the rituals, the whole thing. I got there in the late afternoon, and the retreat was scheduled to start in the early evening. After we had dinner, we went into the Zendo for the first meditation session. It was a very formal place, and I had no idea what the etiquette was. There was minimal instruction, so I learned what I was supposed to be doing by watching other people, which heightened my awareness right away. I sat down on my cushion with all my gleeful anticipation about this experience as the temple bell was struck 3 times to begin the period of meditation. As soon as that bell rang, adrenaline flooded my body. It was not fear, but my whole system went into fight or flight mode. All I could think was, how do I get out of here? Let me out of here. Which is silly because 5 seconds earlier I was thrilled about being there. Fortunately, a small, quiet voice inside me said, "You have no idea how important this is. You must stay." So even though I had adrenaline rushes 24 hours a day for 5 days and nights in a row, I did not sleep throughout the entire retreat, and I contemplated leaving many times. I managed to hang in there, barely, and finish. Not an auspicious beginning for a future spiritual teacher, but that is what happened. I never knew exactly why I had that reaction, but I have a hunch. When you undertake a retreat like that, something deep within you knows, oh, boy, the jig is up now. This is not make-believe. This is the real thing. Something in me knew that this was going to be a complete life reorientation. I did not realize this consciously, but unconsciously my ego reacted as if threatened. This is it. This guy is considering the nature of his own being as far as the egoic impulse running the rest of life. In some ways, my first retreat was a disaster. The only thing that got me through was a mantra I came up with on the second day. Thousands of times over those 5 nights and days, I said to myself, I will never, ever, ever do this again. That was my big spiritual mantra. One of the things that impressed me during that retreat was that Kwang, the Roshi, or teacher, gave a talk each day, and that talk was my respite because I got to sit and listen and be entertained. It was a relief from the bone-jarring meditation, the never-ending silence, and the pain in my knees and back. Kwang had recently returned from a trip to India that had a huge impact on him. I could tell because as he was recounting stories about his trip, tears streamed down his cheeks and dripped off the bottom of his chin. One story especially touched me. Kwang was walking on a dirt road through an impoverished area. There were some kids playing a game with a ball and a stick out in the middle of the road. One kid stood apart from the group, as if ostracized. This boy was watching the kids play and had a sad look on his face. He had a cleft palate, so his upper lip was severely deformed. Kwang walked up to the boy, but they did not speak the same language, so he did not know what to say. There was a moment of indecision, and then Kwang took the boy's hand in his and with his other hand reached into his pocket and pulled out some money. He pointed to a little shop that sold ice cream and gave the money to the boy. I thought it was a sweet way of giving a little comfort and acknowledging this poor kid's existence, his loneliness. As Kwang did this, he gestured to the group of children that seemed to have rejected the boy as if to say, "Go get them and buy them ice cream." He had given the child enough money to buy treats for all the kids. The boy waved to them and pointed toward the ice cream shop, and all the children joined this one kid who had been lonely and sad. Suddenly he was the hero. He had money and was buying ice cream for everybody. The kids were laughing and talking with him. He was included in their group. Kwang sat in lotus position on his cushion in his beautiful brown teacher's robes and told this story in a resonant, soft voice, deeply touched by the poverty that he saw and by the loneliness of that child. He never hid his tears, and he never seemed embarrassed by his emotion. Watching another man embody this juxtaposition of great strength and tenderness taught me more about true masculinity than anything else in my life. Hearing him speak with such fearlessness was extraordinary. For a young, aspiring Zen student, to have this be my first encounter with a Zen master was a tremendous stroke of good luck and grace, especially since during this whole retreat, except for the talks, I was hanging on by a thread. I continued to study with Kwang, did some retreats with him over the years, and appreciated his great wisdom, but I never again saw him in the state he was in on that first retreat. His openness and dignity were a powerful teaching. It was like being bathed in grace. Since then I have attended and led hundreds of retreats, but I still look back on that first one with Kwang as both the absolute worst and absolute best in my life. I did not know how powerfully it had affected me until months later. Staying with whatever arose for me despite being flooded with adrenaline, sitting with it in a raw way through all those hours of meditation instead of running away, was profound. When you are having that experience, when you are being pushed to your limit, you do not think of it as grace, but the real grace was that I was in that environment. I was in a place where I could not go anywhere, where I could not turn on the TV or listen to the radio or grab a book or enter a discussion. I had to face the entirety of my experience. Afterward, when I tried to describe the retreat to people, I would end up in tears, not tears of sadness or even of joy, but of depth. I had touched upon something that was so meaningful, vital, and important that it opened my heart. Meditation helps you feel your feelings as we go through life. We eventually have enough experience to see that sometimes profound difficulty can also be profoundly heart-opening. When you are in a tough position, when you are facing something hard, when you feel challenged, when you feel like you are at your edge, it is a gift to have the willingness to stop, to sit with those moments, and not to look for the quick, easy resolution for that feeling. It is a kind of grace to be able and willing to open yourself entirely to the experience of challenge, of difficulty, and of insecurity. There is light grace, and there is dark grace. Light grace is when you have a revelation, when you have insights. Awakening is a light grace. It is like the sun coming out from behind the clouds. The heart opens, and old identities fall away. Then there is dark grace, like what I had on that retreat. I do not mean dark in the sense of sinister or evil, but dark in the sense of traveling through the darkness looking for light. You cannot see the way through whatever you are experiencing and whatever the challenge is. One of the most amazing things that daily meditation has taught me over many years is to have the wisdom and grace to quietly and silently be with whatever presents itself, whatever is there, without looking for a solution or an explanation. To see yourself is the heart of what a spiritual discipline like meditation is all about. When people come on retreat with me, we meditate for 5 or 6 periods a day. The idea of meditation is not necessarily to get good at it, whatever your definition may be of being good at meditation, but the most important thing, the useful thing, the reason we are meditating is so that we encounter ourselves. If you are not using your meditation to hide from your experience or to transcend it or to concentrate your way out of it, if you are being quietly present, meditation forces honesty. It is an extraordinarily truthful way to experience yourself in that moment. This willingness to encounter yourself is vitally important. It is a key to spiritual life and to awakening, being present for whatever is. Sometimes whatever is mundane, sometimes it is of light, grace, and insight, and sometimes it begins as a dark race, where we do not know where we are going or how to get through it, and then suddenly there is light. One of the nice things about meditation is that when we sit with these moments as they arise, we start to trust in them and in the dark grace. We realize that it is in feeling lost that our true nature finds itself. In meditation we encounter ourselves, and it elicits a real honesty if we are ready for it. You can read about things forever, you can listen to talks forever, and you can assume that you understand or that you have got it, but if you can be with yourself in a quiet way without running away, that is the necessary honesty. When we can do nothing and be extraordinarily happy and at peace with that, we have found tranquility within ourselves. Through experience, we find we can trust the moments when we do not know which way to go, When we feel like we will never have the answers, we know we can stop there and listen. This is the heart of meditation. It is the act of listening in a deep way. You could boil all of spirituality down to the art and practice of listening to nothing and trusting in the difficulty. That is what I learned on that first retreat. It taught me that a direct encounter with challenge is a doorway to accessing our depth, coming face to face with our most important thing, and being able to trust in the unfolding of our life. As a teacher, one of the things I see is the failure of people to trust their lives, their problems, and sometimes even their successes. It is a failure to trust that their life is its own teacher, that within the exact way their human life is expressing itself lies the highest wisdom, and that they can access it if they can sit still and listen. If they can sink into themselves, their own nobodiness, and allow difficulty to strip them of their somebodyness, then they can do away with the masks of their persona. Spiritually speaking, this is exactly what we want, to remove the masks. Sometimes we take them off willingly, sometimes they fall away, and sometimes they are torn off. Unmasking is the spiritual path. It is not about creating new masks, not even spiritual masks. It is not about going from being a worldly person to a spiritual person or trading a spiritual ego for a materialistic ego. It is a matter of authenticity and of the capacity to trust life, even if life has been tremendously tough. It is stopping right where you are and entering profound listening, availability, and openness. If you feel wonderful, you feel wonderful. If you feel lost, you feel lost, but you can trust in being lost. You can do this without talking to yourself about it and without creating a story around it. We must find that capacity to trust ourselves and to trust our life, all of it, whatever it is, because that is what allows the light to shine and revelation to arise. We see it when we stop and listen, not with our ears and not with our mind, but with our heart, with a tender and intimate quality of awareness that opens us beyond our conditioned ways of experiencing any moment. My first retreat, as difficult as it was, taught me that the most amazing things can come out of the most difficult experiences if we dedicate ourselves to showing up for the situation. That is the heart of meditation and the heart of what it takes to discover who and what we are as we turn away from external things and toward the source of love, the source of wisdom, the source of freedom and happiness within. That is where you will find your most important thing. Let's block ads. Why?